really relate. As Anita said earlier, this has been a very difficult time of life for all of us, I believe, in our country and our nation, dealing with COVID-19, dealing with the discrimination issues. And I just think we can all relate to stress management and anxiety. In fact, the research shows that since COVID, depression, anxiety, domestic violence, addictions, uh, child abuse, all of those things have skyrocketed since COVID. So I think we can all relate to this. So let's get started. We're going to have to move pretty fast because there's quite a bit of information to cover today, and we'll have be sure to leave time for questions and answers. Um, okay, so of course we have Gilda's Club. If you don't know much about Gilda's Club, I know Anita will be glad to share more information with you. You can look online. You can ask myself. If anytime you're in the doctor's office, you can stop and ask any of us. We have flyers. We have information. It's a great resource. It's right down the street from the hospital there on the plaza. And they also come to St. Luke South and East and Liberty, and they come to all of our locations because the Cancer Institute of St. Luke's has partnered with Gilda's Club for years now, and we are in a beautiful partnership with one another and do a lot with each other. So we highly support Gilda's Club, and we thank them for everything they do for us. Today's presentation, the objectives of today's presentation is we're going to get to know a lot of information about the brain and anxiety. There's a strong correlation. We're also going to talk about threat versus challenge and switching. How do we switch that perception? And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the span of control. We'll also talk about don't worry, be happy. Sounds simple, but it's not. And we'll also talk about physically reducing our anxiety. So let's look at the history of stress just a little bit and quickly. There's Dr. Walter Cannon, who went out to study the fight or flight response and survival that we all have. Whenever we get triggered, whenever we feel a sense of threat, a lot of us will go automatically into that survival mode, and a lot of us will do that fight or flight. I want you to think for a moment about animals. Think about how animals automatically have it's just an instinct to automatically protect themselves. And so whenever they feel like they're under threat, they will do that. All animals. Think about animals. Think about different ones. Think about a skunk will spray people. Think about a turtle will hide in their shell. Think about the opossum will play dead. A deer will have that frozen look in the headlight thing they talk about. Some animals will flee. They'll run. Some will fight until one of the other animals die or give up. I mean, it's just natural things. We do the same thing. When we feel under stress, when we feel under threat, we will fight, flight, flee, hide, we'll submit, we'll do all kinds of things. Then we have Dr. Hans, who also talks about eustress and distress. Now, there's two different stresses here, and we all have experienced both of these. So I want you to think about distress, of course, is that negative stress. When I'm under distress or when I'm feeling this is a horrible situation, and so I'm stressed out, that's de-stress. Eustress are those positive things that happen to us in our lives, but they're stressful. For instance, maybe you're moving into a bigger and better house. That's awesome and wonderful, but isn't moving stressful, guys? It's stressful. So, but it's eustress. Maybe you're getting married. That's beautiful, wonderful, and all that great stuff, but is it not stressful? It can be stressful. Getting ready for a vacation, a wonderful vacation. Especially moms sometimes, and I don't want to stereotype, but sometimes, moms feel extra, responsible to make sure we have everything so nobody gets a bad sunburn or forgets their swimming suit or whatever it might be. And so it's stressful, but it's a good thing they're going on vacation. Maybe it's the birth of a new baby, your first baby. Oh, how exciting, but gosh, it's stressful getting ready, prepared, being a new mom. I mean, it's all those things that we don't think about that's positive, but it's stressful. So those are the two different kinds of stresses that we're talking about. Anxiety affects over 40 million Americans today. In fact, that number is low, especially right now with what we're experiencing with COVID and the discrimination issues. When we recently Googled the word stress, and I challenge you to Google that, We had millions of results in just a mere 9 seconds. And you will experience the same if you just take a moment to Google it. The brain has been programmed for survival. Our brains have done that. I mean, we're just extinct by an instinct. We do that. And so we like to experience pleasure. Our brain automatically likes to experience pleasure. And we automatically resist those things that are unpleasurable, emotionally, physically, all those things. We prefer to avoid effort and conserve energy. We're just made that way. Our anxious by nature, our brains can be anxious by nature, maybe hyper vigilant, sort of. And our attention span, I wonder what you think it is. All of us have about a blank attention span or focus. Now, I know some of you are thinking men have, 2 seconds. Well, maybe we do. That's probably true. But all of us have an attention span, and it's only about 10 minutes. So it's really not very long. Our brains can get easily distracted. It doesn't take much. I even keep my windows closed. People wonder why. I don't want the light to come in. Well, I do, but it's not just the light, but I can get distracted because I love the outdoors. I like birds and nature and all that. So, or people, I like to watch, people watch. And so I can get easily distracted. So I just keep that away from an issue for me. And I keep the blind shut and I control my lighting by fake light or lights, lamps, and overhead lighting. Never forget unless there's injury or disease. So the brain never forgets unless there's injury or disease. How many of you have heard that old saying, forgive and forget, forgive and forget? And if you haven't forgotten, you didn't forgive. Well, that's silly. That there's no such way that your brain can forget anything unless there is injury or disease when it comes to a traumatic event in your life or something that very majorly impacted you. So anxiety in and of itself is neither good or bad. It's our reactions to the stresses of life and how we manage our anxiety that matter. So if you think about that, anxiety is not good or bad. In fact, we need some of that. It's our reactions to the stressors of life and how we manage our anxiety that matter. Different people can experience the identical situation and yet have very different reactions. Now, I want you to think about that. When I first came to work here, I worked for the Employees Assistance Program, and we had some folks who had been in there and been working there for 35, 40 years. And they were the type of people. Now, you've probably known some of these people who, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, those kind of things. And I remember walking into the work and I was said, okay, now what's the password for the Wi-Fi? And they looked at me and said, Wi-Fi? What are you talking about? And I said, come on, stop playing with me. I said, what's the code for that Wi-Fi? And they go, we don't have that. I'm telling you, we don't have that here. I said, yes, you do. Everybody has that. I'm telling you, they didn't have it, and they didn't get it, and they still don't have it. I could not believe it. I looked at the phone system, and the phone system was archaic. Thank goodness it wasn't a dial thing. It was a push button, thank goodness, but it was archaic. So when finally somebody decided we need a new phone system, oh my goodness, us younger folks, and I'm not that young, so come on, us newer folks and younger folks were like, yay, yay, we're going to get a new phone system. But the older ones, the ones who had been there longer, they were freaking out. Now, why do you think that is? Well, you can only imagine. A lot of them were scared because they thought, I can't learn like I used to. All these younger folks and these techie people are going to make me look bad because they learn faster. Or I'm afraid I'm going to look dumb because I can't figure this out, or it's going to take me longer. And I get that. I really do. But we can all figure this out. We can pull together as a team. We can take all the time it needs. We can get all the training that we need, but we got to get in the now. We got to be more efficient. We got to get things done quicker and faster, and maybe with less people. Who knows eventually? I think there were a lot of feelings involved, but it was very stressful for some and very exciting for others. So it's all the way we look at it. It's a perception. Okay? I want you to think about that. Now, this is what's so exciting, and this is what really helped me a lot and still helps me a lot today with managing stress. But it's the perception of threat. When we have the perception that we are under a threat, like the people who were scared of the phone system, they felt like that was a threat to them because they may look like, I may look bad, or I may not learn it, or I'm slower learning than someone else, those kind of things. That was a threat to them. So when they feel like they're under threat, this is what's going to happen. And I think we've all been there. I know I have. Accelerated heart rate, inability to concentrate, irritability, nausea, dizziness, a sense of loneliness, higher blood pressure, seeing only the negative, feeling overwhelmed, appetite disturbance, procrastination. When you're feeling those kind of things, you're probably feeling under a lot of stress, and it's some sort of feeling of threat. Even when you're in a deep conflictual conversation with somebody, you can feel these physical reactions, which is probably because you're feeling a threat of some sort. I remember not too long ago, we were at the uh, Omaha Zoo. I don't know how many have been there. It's a really cool zoo. Took the kids to the zoo, and my son, as you know, he's an army guy, so he's a daredevil all the way to the max. And I'm not. I used to be more than I am now. The older I get, I don't do those things anymore. But we wanted to go on this cable car thing, you know, that rides over the whole park and over the animals, all that stuff. So my wife and daughter would never do those things, but we talked them into it. So they did it. They got in one cart, and my son and I were in another cart. And I've always liked that kind of stuff. But for some reason, the older I get, I don't like them anymore, and I didn't know that. So I'm getting up in this cable car, and I'm telling you, I am experiencing every one of these symptoms. Another thing for me, and what you got to do is learn the clues of your body to let you know when you're under stress or under a threat. And my ears get really, really red and hot. So I can know that I'm under something not good and I'm stressed out or I'm going to blow or something. And so there I am up there in that cable car with my son. He's really excited. And I'm saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall out of here. I'm going to slide right out of this and fall right down there where those animals are going to get me. I mean, I really felt like I was going to slide out of that cart. And I thought, you know, if I keep sweating like this, because I'm stressed, I am going to slide out of here. And I felt under threat. So I was freaking out. I felt irritable. I couldn't concentrate, dizzy, blood pressure was up. I was seeing only negative stuff, overwhelmed, heart rate, ears were, I was telling my son, I got to get out of here. I think I'm going to have to get off. Of course, you can't get off, it's up in the air. Okay, then I thought to myself, now what have I learned about stress management? What am I telling everybody else to do? I need to practice what I preach. And then I thought, okay, however, when we switch our thinking from threat to challenge, anxiety serves a very different purpose. So when I switch the way I see something, then it changes my perception, my body sensations, my attitude, everything changes. So I switched, just like a light switch. I switched my thinking right up there, hanging from the cable. I said, you know what? This is just a challenge. It's not a threat. I'm not going to fall out of this cart. The cable is not going to break. I had other people flying by me, and kids were hanging outside of it and swinging around thinking, well, they're not even scared. And what is wrong with me? And so when I started to look at this as a challenge, I had a reduced heart rate, I had increased concentration, I had improved mood, seek out others, energy to do things, lower blood pressure, seeing opportunities, feeling we can manage this, normal appetite, and enhanced performance. I mean, I got so excited sitting there and calm. I said to my son, I said, you know, Jake, I want to go on this again. I think I love this. This is fun. I swear I'm telling you the truth, folks. I mean, I really did. I switched my thinking and my perception, and everything calmed down, and it was safe, and it was fun, and I could go on it again and again and again because it was just a challenge. I want you to remember that the thinking and the truth is about a challenge. Challenge connotes manageability. I can manage a challenge, but I have a hard time managing a threat. I will emotionally wig out, freak out, whatever you want to call it, emotionally dysregulated, whatever you want to call it, when I'm under a threat. But if I'm challenged, I like that. I can manage that. I like a challenge. You know, that connotes manageability. And I can gather resources, support, whatever I need to manage a challenge. So I want you to think about that. I want you to look at our brain for a second because this is some just good information to know. The brain and change. And change can be difficult for some of us. And so in the first front part of our brain, we have, well, let's go to the back first. The back part of our brain is where we have all those things stored that are just things we do automatically, like autopilot. You drive to work the same day or the same way every day. In fact, if someone asked me what street I turn on, I probably couldn't tell you the name of the street, but I could take you there because it's just a habit. You get up, you brush your teeth, shower, coffee, you just have your routines, those are very, very important. And we have a ton of them and we need those. So our brain doesn't think about that stuff. Okay. Then we have the middle part of our brain, and that's where we have our stored emotions. That's where Amy, the amygdala, sits, and she stores the emotions and our fight, flight, and freeze responses in there, and we can be triggered and all those things. The front part of our brain is where we have our prefrontal cortex. That's where we have, that's our executive functioning part, where we have good decision making. That's where we manage our emotions. That's where we creative, responsive, good decision making, all those kind of things are there, okay? But when we get triggered emotionally, we can flip our lid, which is our front part of our prefrontal cortex there in our forehead, which isn't fully developed until our mid-20s. And then we're not in our right thinking. We're not in our logical prefrontal cortex, linear type thinking. So think about it. When you're in a conflictual emotional relationship with somebody, and you're in an argument with somebody, and you get triggered, you feel under threat, then you're not even thinking logically. How many times have you been in an argument and someone is not even talking logically, or they're repeating themselves over and over? That's because they're not in their right functioning part of their mind. They're now been triggered, they're emotional, and they feel under threat, and they're not making those good decisions. Okay, that's the brain. That's how we operate. And making change is sometimes very difficult. In fact, I have chosen through COVID, I thought, COVID's taken enough of our lives and changed it so much that, sometimes you look out or you go driving, you go, gosh, is this a holiday? Is this a Saturday or Sunday? Because the traffic was so minimal on some days that it didn't feel like a Monday or a Tuesday or a Friday or when. You got so confused that I chose to go to work every day. There was like 2 days out of all these months that I worked from home. And I don't mind working from home, but right now my wife's working from home. My daughter's finishing school from home, and I'd rather go to work. That's just too much, too many people at home. So, but I also like my routine. I like to drive to work the same way every day. I like going to the office and keeping my door shut during COVID and getting my work done, and it's quiet, and I can do virtual sessions, and but I also thought, COVID's taken enough. I just can't let it take my routine. And that really helped me stay a little more in my routine. And that's what I needed to keep a little more sane, if you will. So in the front part where I said we have the decision making, that's the I will do this, and you can. The more of the I want is in the emotional part of our brain, and back here's I won't or I can't are those kind of stored kind of routine things that we do. Now, the need for control. A lot of us have this need for control. In fact, we do it all the time. A lot of us, as we're driving down the street, we have this chatter going on that maybe identifies trees or identifies buildings or just things that it's a way to help us feel familiar with something or feel like we have some sense of control. It sounds a little odd, but that is kind of what we do automatically. If you stop and become more aware, you'll notice you do those things. So the need for control is, consider this. Are we inadvertently flipping the anxiety switch to the threat position when we focus more of our attention on the things that we can't control? When I focus my attention on things I can't control, does that feel more like a threat? Then could flipping the switch to the challenge position reduce my anxiety? And how do we do that? Well, sometimes what I ask my patients to do, and myself included, I do this a lot too, is I take a piece of paper, I fold it in half, and on one half I write within, and I put outside on the other half, and I list all the things that, let's say, work issues, all the things that are within my control, and on the other side I list all the things that are outside of my control. And I look at what's within my control, and I can focus on that, or I can look at all the things that are outside of my control, which we find ourselves frequently kind of looking at that and focusing a lot of our attention on those outside controls. But when I find what I typically do when I'm under threat or anxiety is I'm spending 30% of my time thinking only about the things that I can, only 30% on what's in my control. And I'm spending 70% of my thinking on the things that are outside of my control. I'm going to have more anxiety. So if I could find a way, and if I do this paperwork and kind of put it on paper in black and white, because I'm pretty visual, then I can maybe switch it and say, you know what, I'm going to spend more of my attention on my thinking. I'm going to spend more of my time thinking about what is within my control, 70%, and only 30% on the things I can't control. And then that helps me kind of get more accomplished. I don't spend time thinking about things I can't even have an impact on, and I don't feel as anxious. I'm not spinning my wheels, and it really helps me reduce my anxiety. Um, and then I can start checking off the things that I can do quickly or really make an impact on. It really feels a lot better. Now, if I stay focused on the things that are outside of my control, eventually I feel like a victim. And I see other people as villains because, again, I'm a victim. Then I start developing this learned helplessness, and then there's a lot of drama, whether it's in my head or we act it out. There's just a lot of drama, and that's always when I'm thinking too much of the things that are outside of my control, and I feel under a threat, and I have a lot of anxiety. Now, let's look at resilience. Well, definitions of resilience. I want you to think about the people in your life, whether it be TV people or personal friends in your life or family, that you thought, wow, they are so resilient. They've really bounced back. It's the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, disruptive change, or misfortune. It's the process of bouncing back. It's bulletproofing. It's just learning how to bounce back. And how high are we bouncing back? It's a challenge. Why resilience? Resilience is more predictive of success in life than IQ, education, or training. Event, thought, feeling, action, and result. And I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Our mindset, more than circumstances, determines our outcomes. Accepting reality includes identifying what we cannot change and changing the things that we can. Remember the serenity prayer. It's often a good one to recite on a regular basis to help us stay focused on what we can change. Now, I want you to think about something here. Think about times when we've had some non resilient thinking. And I can tell you, I've definitely been there, and I can catch myself when I go there now, too. But, years ago when I worked inpatient psychiatric care, it was very stressful. It got more stressful as time went on. And I remember many events that were stressful, but when this particular employee would call in sick quite often, and it became very irritating. So let's just say that's the event. Let's say an event happens. Person calls in sick, another therapist. Okay, now the self-talk is, and my story, self-talk is shock, disbelief, panic, and fear. It's non-resilient thinking. Person calls in sick. Then I create a story. Don't we all create stories in our head? Come on. If you're honest, you'll agree. We do it. I do it all the time. Gets me in trouble. And I'll be thinking, oh, it's not fair. I shouldn't be doing their work. I don't know what to do next. I work harder than they do. This has to stop. I can't take it anymore. We start thinking that way. We start thinking, she's not sick anyway. She's probably at home watching TV or sitting out by the pool eating bonbons or something. I mean, we have all those stories going on, don't we? Or we think about the guy who cuts us off at the highway. Don't we have all those stories? My gosh, he's a weirdo. What's he doing? He's probably high on drugs or something. My gosh, probably has a gun in the car too. He's crazy. I mean, we say those things, don't we? We don't know what's going on. We don't know that he's not running to the emergency room because his loved one's dying. We don't know if he doesn't have a pregnant lady in the car that's delivering her baby right now that they got to hurry to the. We don't know those things. So here we are with that negative story in our head. Well, now what purpose does that serve? Not a thing. It's non-resilient thinking. Now, if I think like that, like I did with that employee, I'm going to have feelings of frustration and anger and anxiety and a victim feeling. I'm a victim again, defensive and resentful. My actions are going to be I'm going to judge, blame, criticize, make excuses for my behavior, and I'm going to drive around in my BMW. Do you know what that is? I'm going to drive around and bitch, moan, and whine. Now, don't tell me we all haven't done that because we do. We create drama. And we're going to pick up some passengers along the way. And we're all going to be in there doing that, aren't we? Well, we need to stop that because it's going to create drama. And then we're going to have conflict. And we're going to have dissatisfaction, higher stress and illness, poor results, damaged relationships, diminished creativity and problem solving. All this can happen because of non resilient thinking and because of the perception I chose to take. It was a choice, believe it or not. Or I could choose resilient thinking, and believe me, that serves me better and everybody else. So let's say I have the same event. Person calls in sick again, the co-therapist. I could say, well, okay, my self-talk could be, what are the facts? Okay, so they're sick again today. Okay, so what? Um, is this something I can change? No. How can I help? How can I make it better? Well, I can be thinking, good to know. I'm glad I have the information. We should be talented and skilled enough to figure this out and get through this. Accept reality. Threat or challenge? Which is this going to be? It's going to be a challenge. It doesn't have to be a threat because you know what? The day's going to pass one way or another. And we can do just the minimum today that has to get done. And that's just going to have to be enough. I'm going to ask good questions. My feelings then, if I think this way, is maybe anxious some, but manageable, concerned, calm, hopeful. I'm going to switch from blaming and judging and criticizing to helping. I'll be more helpful. My actions are going to be stay solution focused, work to resolve issues, personal accountability, prioritize, and communicate clearly. The results are going to be lower stress, engagement, learn, grow, strengthen the team, creativity, make progress toward goals. I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to have resilience. Now, folks, don't get me wrong. I'm not a Pollyanny thing, and I'm not always chipper and all that. In fact, people are too chipper kind of irritate me, 'cause that's not reality either. And I shy away from those people because they get on my nerves. Sometimes you can just be a little too chipper in life, and I get that because that's not reality. So this kind of thing is going to bother me. Don't get me wrong. And I may take my boss in the other room and shut the door. And I may have my little fuss session, but when I walk out of there, I'm done. And I'm going to be resilient. And I'm going to come across like this. And I'm going to choose to look at this as a challenge. Okay, so there is a time and place for things. And there's a time and place to be frustrated. I get that. But I want to choose resilience more than non-resilience because it's going to help me a whole lot better. I need to keep my inflammation down. I need to keep my cortisol levels lower. It's going to serve me better, and I'm going to come across a whole lot better to others. So 5 ways to break these habits of negative habits of threat position all the time. You want to shift to other mental, physical activities that will require more attention to deliberately distract ourselves. So we want to find things that we can do to distract ourselves from those negative things that we're thinking, perhaps, or the threats. You want to monitor for ants. Now, what ants stand for is automatic negative thoughts. Every single one of us have automatic negative thoughts. They say that every human being has, first of all, let me tell you how many thoughts that we all have. We all have, gosh, I think they want to say 66,000 plus thoughts a day. And that's probably more than that, actually. And I think they did the research, and it was 77% of those thoughts are automatic negative thoughts. Wow, that's a lot, folks. So we have to be ready to monitor for those, to stop when we hear them, and to replace them with positive facts. Not Pollyanny things, but positive facts, grateful things, and the truth, the reality of things, okay? Sometimes I ask my patients to put a rubber band on their arm. Every time they get those automatic negative thoughts, snap that rubber band. Granted, some people are pretty bloody by the end of the day. I get that. But they are becoming aware of those automatic negative thoughts and how they want to replace them if they want to start switching their mindset. Keep a gratitude journal. Very helpful. In fact, we do a lot of weird things in my family because I'm a therapist and I try to practice these things. My wife has said many times she would never marry a therapist again because, again, we do a lot of weird things. So I've asked my family, well, it wasn't even a question. We all had to keep gratitude journals, and the kids and everybody. And then we share them at the end of the week. Sometimes my wife and I would say, okay, kids, the things you're grateful for by the end of the week, and we'll share them at Sunday dinner. And we do that. It was so much fun. And you know what? I still see my kids keep their journal today. They don't know that I know that, but I've seen them. So it's fun. I love it. Spend time with people who are not worriers. You know how you spend time with people and you walk away all worrying and fretting and all that. I have my best friend. I love her to death, but she gets me nervous because she starts worrying about legal problems with therapy and practice. And I mean it. I just can't spend too much time with her, or I have to ask her to stop talking about that because then I get very anxious. But that's just what she does. So I have to realize, or being around negative people, I don't like it. It's not good for me. So you guys have to be careful and understand who are your toxic people in your life and have boundaries. Um, Determining if your thinking is being useful or is it useless. You got to think, okay, now is my thinking really useful to me or is this useless thinking? It's not going to serve me well or anybody else. And then if it isn't, you got to switch it. And that's something, first you have to recognize it, and then you got to choose to do something about it. Physically managing anxiety, you got to sleep. You guys, some people think, oh, I can sleep on 5 hours of sleep a night, and that's the way I've always been. Well, that's probably not true. You just may not know any different. They say that all of us need a good 8.5 hours of sleep a night. I did not believe them because I was a 5 hour sleep night person for many, many years until I started getting 7 to 8 hours. I was like, oh, this feels pretty good. And so now, and I am paying a price today, medically and in many ways, because of the way I ran my body for way too long in a negative way. And so, please listen, get your sleep. It's very important. It's very restorative, and we all need it. Exercise. We know we need, they say, a good hour of exercise every day, of aerobic exercise of some sort. Work on tracking your steps, parking your car farther away, taking the steps instead of the elevators. Um, taking a quick walk, taking your tennis shoes with you wherever you go. If you have to wait in line somewhere for a long time, go take a walk in between. If you have breaks in between your appointments somewhere and you're headed to another appointment and you have time, take a walk in between. I always keep my tennis shoes. I used to, when I worked at Corporate Woods, they have a beautiful track there, or, court, trail. So I'd always, and sidewalks are beautiful, all that stuff, pathways. I always kept my pair of tennis shoes there at work too, so I could take a break during lunch and take a walk. It was just beautiful. So always be prepared for a nice walk. Nutrition, we need to eat. We need to eat not a lot at one meal. We probably need to eat about 5 small meals a day. And a lot of us work better with a higher protein meal, but that's, everybody's different. You got to figure out your own body. I know I do a lot better with a higher protein, lower carbs. In fact, I'm doing better now with no dairy and no gluten. It's really fantastic. It's amazing how much better you can feel. But again, that everybody's different. Talk to your doctor, your nutritionist. Know your body. You got to figure that out. And everybody is different. Relaxation. It's very important that we do things for relaxation. Meditation, relaxation exercises, yoga, body massages, pedicures, manicures, even getting a haircut's very relaxing for a lot of people. My wife says it's so relaxing for her because, I don't know, they put something on her scalp when they wash her hair and they massage it. And she says it's so relaxing. She loves it. So whatever it is for you, taking walks, sitting in nature, being in the trails, taking hikes, sitting in the sun, walking the dog, whatever it is, find it. Now, I think with COVID, it made it difficult because a lot of people like to go out to eat with their friends or have drinks with their friends or body massages and all those things. And a lot of those things were stopped, or pedicures and nails done and all those things were stopped. And so you had to get really creative with doing your relaxation and self-care things. Pursuing interest, find new interest every day. Every 6 months, do something new. Take a foreign language class, take an art class, take take one of those painting classes that you can do, line and paint. I don't know what they call now, I forgot, but those are fun. My wife and I did that. I am not artistic at all. Trust me. She is, but I am not. But it didn't turn out so bad. It was kind of fun. I didn't really want to do it at first, but I got into it. But do something for fun. Take a, like I said, foreign language. Take a hobby. There's all kinds of clubs you can get involved in. So many things you could do. Look at traveling. Have a vision. Prayer. Medication can help in a lot of times for anxiety. Really, just a little bit of that. Sometimes you can talk with your doctor. All kinds of things. A resilience quote: when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Now, Viktor Frankl, I don't know if you've heard of him, he is an awesome, awesome Holocaust survivor, and he's written a lot of books. But Man's Search for Meaning is a very powerful book. I'd recommend you to read sometime. But he says everything can be taken from a man, but one thing: the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That's a choice. Oh, pet therapy. I forgot. I don't want to forget pet therapy because I have a little dog that I'm obsessed with, and that's Koko. She's right here. She goes everywhere with me, and it's our other dog, Daisy. So those things I find very relaxing to me. So in closing, we want to look at what kind of program you can develop for yourself. Well, focusing on what is within our control improves energy. Expressing appreciation to others, ask for support or assistance. List what might be going well. Decrease negative experiences. Watching your attitude. Discovering what's useful and what's useless. In your personal plan, you may want to consider some of the following things, which is ask questions. Increase your mental and emotional flexibility. Assume that change and having to work with uncertainty and ambiguity are a way of life from now on. As you know, for sure, folks, as we've been going through the coronavirus and all of those things, and we never expected something like that. In fact, you know, the United States hasn't expected any of these kind of horrible things that's happened since 9/11 to now. And I think we can start understanding that anything could happen. We can't really be prepared for that necessarily, but we are not invincible and things do happen. Learn how to learn from all experiences. When things happen, we can stop and say, okay, what am I to learn from this? How can I find meaning in this situation? And not only can I find meaning, how can I then help somebody else with what I've experienced and what I'm experiencing? There's got to be a lesson in it somewhere. Develop empathy. Try to have empathy for others. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Um, I believe a lot of things we go through in life is so we can better understand someone else. We can truly empathize with them a little bit more than someone who's never been through that experience. Minimize and simplify. Guys, really minimize your life. Simplify your calendar. Simplify your life. Declutter your home. Declutter your life. Throw out what you don't need. Just simplify. Life can be simple. COVID has really shown us we don't have to run around and shop all the time or buy a lot of things. We can live on less and less running around, and it can be relaxing. Plan ahead. Don't wait for the last minute. Plan ahead and be prepared. Resist putting labels on others. When you label me, you negate me. I'm no longer a person, I'm a thing. So don't judge. Take time to observe and reflect. Make yourself useful in all situations. Take time to appreciate yourself. Follow the surviving and thriving sequence. Well-being essentially means we are creating more positive than negative experiences on a daily and weekly and monthly basis. What new information have you learned today? Or what will you commit to start doing today or tomorrow to contribute to your well-being? And again, don't forget Gilda's Club of Kansas City. And please take time to get involved and share your story with others.